I had an executive coaching client that I've been working with for the last 6 months, and we had completed the coaching. And what happens in the coaching process is at the end, we have one final completion session. And so I send a coaching completion form that gives the client an opportunity to reflect on the journey and to look at the primary focus areas that we had set for the coaching and celebrate and acknowledge the successes and the progress, and also to identify where there are gaps and what's next, and to help the client identify what kind of support and accountability they want to design for themselves moving forward outside of the formal structure of the coaching process. And so I was coaching this woman. I'm going to call her Barb. And I got her permission to share this story, but I'm going to change all of the details so that she won't be able to know who she is. So I was coaching Barb. She lived on the East Coast, and we worked through a lot of powerful issues. When she came into the coaching, she had just come through a really, really incredibly stressful process at work, where she owned her own company in partnership with another person. And she found out, after pouring her heart and soul into this company for years and years and years, that he was doing illegal activities, and everything came crashing down. And there was an investigation, and the police were involved, and she was vindicated, and she had no idea what was happening. And so she came into the coaching at the tail end of this, wanting to rebuild. Her confidence was shaken, her confidence in herself. Her company was, in some ways, devastated, and the partnership was over. And so she had a couple of primary focus areas. She wanted to work on rebuilding her confidence. She wanted to identify what was next for her professional career, and how she could find joy and passion. And she wanted to really use this time to create some more balance in her life. She found that when she woke up and all this had happened, that she had really poured her heart and soul into her work and her professional identity. And at the end of the day, the people who were there for her was her family. And she realized that she had not put in the energy and time to them that she wanted to. And so she wanted to identify how she could have more balance and create more space for her family and not put work first. So for 6 months, we coached her on these issues. And she kept having more awareness and ahas, and she started doing informational interviews, and she created charts of outlining the passion she wanted. And she went on vacation with her husband on their 20th anniversary, and she reconnected with her kids and started to interview, and everything was just happening beautifully. She was doing the hard work that it takes when something bad happens in your life, or not even when something bad happens, when you want to redesign your life and you want to be creating something different for your life. She was putting in the hard work, and every 2 weeks we would get together, and she'd have homework and action items, and she nailed it. It was phenomenal. And so at the end of the coaching, we have a completion session. And we scheduled it. It was, maybe about 6 weeks ago. And then it was the day before, and she emailed. She said, I'm so sorry, I've got a conflict. Can we reschedule? I said, yeah, no problem. So we pushed it out a week or two. And that date came, and she sent a text saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I have a conflict. Can we reschedule? I said, yeah, no problem. So we had the final completion session last week. And she came in, and she said, Darcy, I now know why the universe kept on getting in the way of us having this completion session. She said, I didn't know what was going on until I saw your story, until I read your story. in the Bravo magazine, and I watched the NBC 15 newscast about your husband being arrested and your journey to get to where you are today. And she said, I watched you. I had no idea. I've known you since that day when he was arrested. I had no idea that that happened and that you were dealing with that. And there was a while there that you sort of pulled back and you weren't present, and yet you didn't disappear, and you are stronger than ever. And she said, when I read that story, what shocked me is the level of forgiveness that you have for John. And she said, I needed to hear that because it was the missing piece. It was the missing link to me truly moving into this next phase of my life. I need to figure out how to forgive my ex-business partner. And she said, I, all this time, have been thinking that forgiveness would be a betrayal of my journey. That forgiveness would mean that I have accepted or approved of what he did or condoned of it. And I don't. It makes me sick to my stomach, the things that he did. And she said, all of a sudden it dawned on me that forgiving somebody isn't for them, it's for me. And she had this aha, and she was crying as she was sharing this, saying, I've been hanging on to this anger and this grief and this resentment and this bitterness. And how could he do this to me? And she said, until I recognized the need for me to step into forgiveness, I was hanging on to all of this negativity. And it was getting in the way of me truly moving forward. And she said, I have this release. And it's not easy. She's like, I'm angry at him and I feel duped and manipulated. And if you read some of the research from Brene Brown, who has got so many books out, I'm guessing most of you who are watching and listening know Brene Brown, but she's got Rising Strong and Daring Greatly and The Gifts of Imperfection, so many books. She talks about forgiveness, and that forgiveness involves grief, and it's almost a death of sorts, and a process of letting go. And that's what my client had to do, and that's what I had to do. And so you might be sitting here saying, wait a minute now, Darcy, you talk about creating high-performing people and teams. What does forgiveness have to do with this in the workplace? This is exactly it. If you spend 40 hours or more a week with the same people, working in an organization with a team, somebody is bound to let you down. Somebody is bound to say or do the wrong thing that hurts you. Of course they are. We are human. We screw up. We hurt people. And so how can you step into forgiveness? And really releasing that energy of being angry and resentful and bitter. And step into acceptance and forgiveness. Now, it doesn't mean you have to condone what happened. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's easiest to forgive when you set a healthy boundary. I got a divorce. That was a big boundary that I set that helped me to step into forgiveness. So it may be that there's some work you need to do to create some boundaries. But if you can stretch to accept someone for who they are and what they did and find forgiveness in your heart, you will have more freedom, greater joy, less anger. So I thank you to my client who gave me permission to share this story because it was so powerful. And next week, I'm going to build on this and talk about forgiving yourself. So thanks for joining me for Thoughtfully Fit Thursdays. I'm Darcy Loma, and I appreciate you coming in and tuning in every week so we can learn and grow together. If there's some ahas you're having, shoot me a note, make a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend, everybody.